Thanks to joining WinnerOdds Talks. We are very happy to have a long-time user with us to comment your experience about WinnerOdds and also other tipsters or other systems you can also use in order to earn money betting. Well, Adam is also known in Discord as Fubar. He is very active and he has very interesting comments always. He has been betting with us for a long time. He knows very well the system, and we will have his opinion and his experience about WinnerOdds, and anything you want to ask him also in the chat, or you want to ask me too, feel free to write it and we will try to answer. Okay, so first of all, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Where are you from? Which is your experience? How long have you been winning bettor?
No, thanks, Miguel. It's good to be here this morning, or this afternoon at least. So Adam from South Africa, tip of the African continent in that regard. Been betting since about October 2020, so I've been in it for almost about 5 years. COVID helped kick that off, I suppose, when people got behind laptops and worked from home. But been with WinnerOdds for about 2.5 years, so it's been, as Miguel says, quite a long duration with him. But effectively, I went through the whole process. Let's say going through the various different tipsters, the platforms, and eventually, of course, found WinnerOdds, which I'm still an active subscriber to this day. So, no, thanks, Miguel, for joining this afternoon.
Okay, so first of all, which sports from WinnerOdds are you using at the moment? Tennis and football, or?
I'm actually, let's say, taking a small month break. I've actually always been in touch with Furman about this, but started off with tennis, then tennis and football, then tennis, football, and table tennis. So I've been working with all three. Table tennis. I've also been with table tennis. Table tennis I've been with almost for more than a year, about 18 months with table tennis as well. So quite some time as well. So all three sports that I've been active participant with WinnerOdds, and of course just waiting for the fourth one, but we won't talk about that today.
Okay, and first of all, how did you know about WinnerOdds? Did you find us in a forum or in a blog or any reviewer like Smart Betting Club, or did you find us?
No, well, the original betting journey started on Twitter. I think Twitter is where all the noise takes place, and I know that let's say I went through a bit of a journey just to get to at least WinnerOdds. I think I found, let's say, a number of tipsters on Twitter, and with all those links I came across the Smart Betting Club. So I think the Smart Betting Club is what sort of made me move up a level in terms of understanding the betting. And Smart Betting Club, of course, I've found out about WinnerOdds when they did the ranking system. So, they give the top rankings and things like that, and always kept an eye on football. And there was one or two tennis people there. It was always you, and there was also Nishikori. Nishikori also being quite established in the community, and having you, then that's how I got wind of WinnerOdds. But I actually started using WinnerOdds, your Excel tools, before actually using the service. I think that's one thing that but a big thing was on education and releasing these Excel tools to identify if a tipster is real, if it's statistically valid. And I've actually been using those tools to this day, with a bit of customization to see if somebody's actually getting, genuine results or positive variance. But I actually found Smart Betting Club is what kicked off things with you, and I actually started around November 2022, so quite some time ago.
Okay, so you study very well in the tipster before joining their service, and I assume that when you analyzed and when you studied the numbers of WinnerOdds, perhaps you had any concerns about the number of bets we recommend is too high, because I have known some people that say that is too much volume for them. They are used to tipster around 100, 200 bets per month. So what did you think about that?
That was quite something. I mean, one thing that, again, on the Smart Betting Club, when they show their little Excel sheets, there's WinnerOdds all the way to the right-hand side on volume. And all the others are, as you said, 100 to 200 per month. And that's already high for a lot of tipsters. But I think it was looking at the numbers and also just looking where I was in life, because I was able to bet from home, especially during the work from home phase. And I thought to just give it a try. I mean, the volumes were quite something to get used to. I think that was probably the biggest thing to just get used to, is the volumes and the frequency. It's not just a lot of bets, it's how often the bets are made. And I think that was something very different, because I mean, no other service at that stage was doing things like that. It was always a release on Twitter or an email. I mean, I had some email services, and they would come first thing in the morning. Life was good, but I mean, there'd be 1 or 2 bets per week, or, that type of thing. So WinnerOdds volume was quite something new.
And also, I think that the platform itself, the website or the odds page, is different for when compared with other systems. Like you have said, you receive emails or you receive by Telegram recommendations. But from the beginning, we focused on making things easy for the people that uses WinnerOdds, so that they can save their bets and compare with other users. Do you have any other tool that you use to track your bets?
Not anymore. I used to do all the tracking in Excel, so across all the different tipsters and platforms. And I think what you quickly overlook is how useful it is to have a tracking tool on WinnerOdds. I mean, if you have to spend time capturing your own bets, it takes a lot of time. And then capturing, validating, for getting the results, that takes, I mean, you actually get tools out there that do this for you, but at the end of the day, you still have to do it manually. WinnerOdds made it very easy to do that. And I think that's one that's, it's a key feature that no one understands until they actually start doing it themselves. I mean, if you start capturing 200-300 bets per month manually and validating it, it takes a lot of time. I did do that in the beginning, just to at least validate the results. But I mean, I don't use any tracking tool now. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just using the built-in WinnerOdds tool. It just makes life a lot easier, especially with the volumes. So, but also one thing about the WinnerOdds site is the accessibility to data. I mean, I know that you just have to send an email and you get the full disclosure of all data historically. It's a really transparent process. I mean, I remember when I first started betting, I mean, the one tipster on Twitter, they would always just talk about their ROI. And I asked him, can he share his results? And he says, no, he'll make a plan, to get them to me. Never got them, and it just made you realize that the transparency of data is a big deal. Again, it's just something that you don't understand until you actually start comparing it to other platforms or users. So I definitely like, let's say, the capturing of data was also it was a big one from the WinnerOdds side.
And we always try to be very transparent. Of course, it is very difficult to share all the information because there are many bets from many users. Each of them gets different odds, different bookies, and that's why we use the average user history. That is more or less something in the middle between the faster and slower users. But we think that is a good tool just also for other users to compare with the average. And we have been talking about how easy it is to track the bets you place with WinnerOdds, but what about the bookies? I don't know if you know about that, but when we started WinnerOdds, we only had 5 bookmakers tracked. We had Bet365, Betfair, 888, William Hill, and also Marathon, I think.
It was Marathon. I think that was one of the ones.
Yeah, 5 bookmakers. And we have been increasing the number of bookmakers we track. We scan their odds so that it is easy for the users to find the best odds in different bookmakers. Have you found any other service that does the same, or do you have experience about other ways to, or do you use, I don't know, Odds Checker or Oddspedia or other websites like this to find the odds in the bookies?
So this is where things are different from let's say South Africa, is that we only have local bookies. So a lot of the track bookies are more geared towards Europe and of course around the world in that sense. So we don't actually, so none of the bookies aren't tracked from a South African sense. That's where the beauty is that you don't only need the bookies that WinnerOdds is showing. As long as you've got access to a soft book, there's a good chance that there is going to be an EV bet to be made. So, I mean, I did things the hard way and have been doing it all this time, is to do things manually. So when if there's let's say an EV bet on Bet365, I go to my local books that I know that are good, that have got good margins, and I actually go check those odds myself. So there's a little bit of extra work on my side, at least from our side, but what it does show you is what I do use the system for is I access about 20 of your books, and if majority of them have got an EV bet, then there's a good chance that the local books here have got an EV bets.
Okay.
And I think that, and so in other words, I use it smartly. I don't use it the way it's intended, but I mean, I can't say them at any disadvantage. I mean, I know at one stage I think you did the deep links with Bet365 and tried that. So I mean, that would make that makes life easier. But I mean, I don't think I've been ever at a disadvantage of not having my books monitored by the system. And I've never asked for it because I mean, as I said, it's very localized to our country.
So you've done many bookmakers that are not monitored in WinnerOdds. Okay, well, so
not monitored per se, but that can't be monitored in South Africa. So I would choose Bet365, the big ones, Marathon, Bet65, Betfair, not Pinnacle, but all your main ones that we know that are the good ones to track. And then if those have got an EV bet, then I can go look at my local books and check for an EV bet there.
So that's a disadvantage because, as you have said, you spend more time looking in different bookmakers, but the advantage is that there is less people betting on them, so that you can get the value that is there. So there are
the value loss is just a little bit longer. Yeah, the value loss is just a little bit longer, but I think it's an extra grant, but a bit of an extra benefit there. And I don't expect WinnerOdds to change on that because I mean WinnerOdds focuses on the most popular books. It has to. I mean, there's no point in WinnerOdds to track a local book on this side because only a few users would benefit from it. So I don't want anything to change.
We don't have many users from South Africa, as you know. Talking about these bookies you are using. Which ones are the best for you in your country, or which are are they available for many sports, or just the mainstream sports like tennis, football, or do they have many small market sports too?
We've got a few. They're more localized. I mean, I can always share with them on the Discord channels. But we've got the usual ones like a Betway, Sporting Bets, Betfred. Those are some of the international ones that are here, but they always have different odds. Our more localized books have got very extensive books. So we get ITF, for the tennis. It goes, and either all the way down to Norwegian 3rd division, I think it is, for the soccer. So we do have access to quite a few markets. But again, as with any country, I think that if you've got about 40 books in the country, some of them will only focus on football, and others will focus on all the smaller leagues. So again, my books have never put us at a disadvantage in terms of what WinnerOdds focuses on. So got access to all those. But I mean, I suppose we've got about, let's say, 40, 50 books in this country, I would say, easily.
Oh, it sounds well. So, well, as we in WinnerOdds, we provide the minimal profitable odds. So the lower odds you can bet and get some value, around 1-2% of yield. That's different also from other systems because this number is very hard to calculate. So where is the limit when you can decide to bet or not, which is the minimum profitable odds? And have you found this system in other tipsters or platforms, or are you used to different ways to calculate, well, how many points can you bet below the recommended odds? How do you do that with other systems?
No. I mean, I know that, let's say, from a WinnerOdds point of view, there's a 2% EV in place. I mean, other systems I work with, I think that's where the benefit is, because other systems sometimes won't even tell you what the fair odds should be. And I think that's where also there's a big problem. Some of them will tell you what the fair odds will be, but they don't tell you what the margin, the EV on those bets are. So I think that's where WinnerOdds does differentiate. There's one, I do like to look at other areas just to see if there's other EV opportunities, and sometimes in that case it'll be like, let's say, 10% ROI depending on the volatility. But I mean, from the, I don't know if I'm quite answering that, Miguel, but I mean, effectively, I don't do the calculations myself because I mean, I don't know what the fair odds are, in that sense, but I'm happy to take, let's say, the guidance that WinnerOdds does at that minimum profitable odds.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's something that we have many times the same question. What happens if I bet a little bit below the minimum profitable odds?
Oh
Is
no,
still
it's what I do personally, and I know that you won't like it, is that sometimes winner odds will do 3 decimals, and then my bookmakers have got 2 decimals. So then I just do the little round off, and it might be red still, but it's good enough for me, in that sense sometimes. But
okay.
I know that the things that I've seen a lot of people on the forum say, what about just below it? But I mean, the moment that you go just below it, you start going under that 2% margin that EV, and I think that's when you're taking chances. I think what is I think Furman always said there, just skip it and there'll always be another bet. It's a volume game, so don't get too caught up on it.
Well, one of the criteria we use to set the minimum profitable odds is to get this 1-2% yield at those odds. And that is also because when you spend time betting, you don't want to bet at 0% yield. So if you spend time, if you move your money, you block it in open bets, then you want to get at least 1 or 2%. So that is the reason of not having lower minimum profitable odds that still could be a little bit profitable, but as you have some other costs like time, money blocked in open bets, so we decided to have this criteria, and we try to be always in this point a little bit above 0% yield. And when you started betting with WinnerOdds, I don't know if you remember, but do you started following the bankroll on the bet size, or do you started with lower bankroll just to check how were the results?
No, I think when I started with WinnerOdds, it was a little bit rocky because the volume was something new to get used to. The bankroll, I started with the recommended bankroll. I think it was €3,000. I think that's what the minimum requirement, and I think that's a good bankroll to have for a fair return on investment, as you said, also for your time. But I think the start of it, I mean, the bankroll it helped a lot there, especially as it grew, so did your bets. So it was a nice cumulative bankroll as well, if you kept it like that. I think you once mentioned about how you let it hit a particular number, withdraw your money, and then start again. I think that was one of you once mentioned about your way of working. And I think that's the best way of it, so the bankroll doesn't grow too much unnecessarily. But started with the minimum bankroll. I think in the beginning I didn't use the minimum profit, the MPO, correctly. So what happened was that I would check. The rule of thumb, of course, is if it's green, put a bet down. If it's red, leave it. And I was checking all the red ones as well. I was going through a very heavy grind, and that's why for the first 8 weeks it was very difficult to finally understand the system, to trust the system, to know there's always another bet there before you actually started seeing some profits.
Yeah, it's something that we try to explain always. It is in the 10 main recommendations of WinnerOdds. Don't bet below minimum profitable odds. Also, don't bet on leave odds. I mean, in matches that have already started.
Yes. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, because there is a lot of information we don't manage. And what did you expect from WinnerOdds? Perhaps you saw very good results, and were your expectations more or less fulfilled, or were you waiting different results?
Well, I mean, I joined WinnerOdds because, let's say, when I joined the recommendations, I mean, the SPC recommendation helped because they did their checks help a lot, and of course the expectation was you saw the results, you saw the return on investment, that's what you wanted. I didn't have a goal in mind to say I wanted a return on capital at ×4 or ×5, but I think that the expectation was to at least start generating some profit, and that took a while because I mean it started off slow, and I wasn't quite sold until you started hitting about 500 bets, and I think that's where things started really taking off. So the expectations are difficult in the beginning because people will see your historical charts. They just see it's going up. I mean, it takes all the drawdowns you can't see because it's so it's so much data there, and I think that's what people are expecting. And there is still those early days, those early weeks where you can hit 500 bets and still be break even or even negative. But that's that's statistical variance for you. You know, so I think that
Yeah,
I was lucky that I was break even after the first 8 weeks, because I mean, you know, and then it at least started going up, you know. So I think it helped a lot, you know.
Yes, of course. It happens all the time. When people joins and has a very good streak, they have very good results in the first few weeks. They think that will long forever, and they will have these good results all the months, and that is not going to happen. And there is also the opposite. If you start and you have joined in a month that is not good for us with bad results, they think that this system doesn't work, and so it's something that is normal. I can understand it. I also suffer it myself. It's something that you cannot ignore. We have loss aversion. It's very hard for us to understand the variance, and that's why I shared many tools like the one you mentioned at the beginning, the Excel tools and the betting calculator where you can simulate with Monte Carlo many historic results. So it's very hard to understand the variance. And which is or have you had a very big drawdown with WinnerOdds or any other system that has been difficult to get on or to continue with?
To stomach, we say, yeah. No, the other systems I haven't, you know, because of my history with WinnerOdds, I've only had a drawdown with WinnerOdds. Because of the other systems that were just unprofitable. So I don't think the other systems, I mean, can I mention some of them? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I think when I first started betting, right at the beginning, I started with Nishikori. I think that was, you know, Nishi was, you know, and when I initially started, there was profit, but then he went through a very bad spell. And I mean, the numbers just dropped and dropped. And I mean, at that stage, I just gave up, you know, because I mean, you know, all the money that you'd made. And so, I mean, that was probably the worst drawdown that I experienced, but I think it was an unprofitable system for a long time. And I mean, it's only recent, I think, that he's picked up again. But so I've only had the drawdowns in WinnerOdds, and I mean, it happened after, I think, the first, about 8 weeks? No, not 8 weeks. It was about, when did I have the first drawdown? I think maybe after 60 weeks, 4 months was the first drawdown. But I think already at that stage, to have profit every single week and to experience one big negative, you just kept on going with it. So I think in that case, I mean, there wasn't anything that I needed to happen or encouragement because of the profit that had been made, you know. So the drawdown was expected, and it was in line with what the previous week's, you know, profitability was. I think, I mean, there is drawdown. Of course, there's a lot of noise on the forums, and I mean, you know, everybody's sharing their charts, and I've also been guilty of that one. I mean, asking you to comment on some charts and things like that, you know, to say, you know, but I think it's, as you said, loss aversion stuff. Even if you say your bankroll is 3,000 euros, you're not prepared to lose 3,000 euros. I don't think anybody ever is prepared to lose that in a week. So I think it's difficult, but what I say is that I think what helped a lot during the drawdown was just the activity on the forums, that everybody's in it together, and there has been profit made, and to trust the system, because the moment that you stop, the moment that you take your money out, I mean, that's when you miss the swing. You know, so
and well, nowadays we are having a not very big but a long drawdown in time. So we had a drawdown, and it is taking a lot of time to recover from that in tennis at least. And well, it was the same what happened in 2021. We had a very big drawdown, and it was very hard to recover. But when this happens, we go back to the numbers and we check which are the results, if it is variance or not. We take as a reference the closing line value. So we calculate the expected value according to the odds that are very close to the beginning of the match. And we are writing this week an article about that. And we can check that, well, we haven't changed anything in the algorithm. We haven't changed anything in the system. Bookies are constantly trying to improve, but it takes a lot of time for them to improve. So if they are better now than years before, it is a very slow change. And what we have checked is that everything is correct. And we will see in the article that Fermin and I are writing that it's just variance, and it's a question of time that we come back to an all-time high again. But I assume that it's very hard to assume that after 1 month and not having profits is discouraging, and you can have some doubts about the system, of course. But well, that's why we try to get back to the numbers and be very objective, and we are not going to change anything just because this last month or last 2 months. And especially people that has joined recently, it's normal that they have doubts, and it's very hard to continue in these conditions. But it's something that we have to manage. And of course, if you have had a drawdown before, and if you continue and you have good results, then you will be prepared for the next one better, and you have to think in the long term. And also, one question: is your job related with numbers also, so that it is easier for you to understand variance or statistics, or which is your experience with maths and statistics?
Yeah, no, I do work with maths and stats on a regular basis. I've got when I started actually, like the betting journey, I've got lots of Excel sheets, in terms of my own models and let's say my own failed models in that sense. But I understand, like, let's say, using the stats is that you can identify when there's a real variance, when there's a genuine probability, statistical, significance and things like that. So, I mean, go through the drawdowns. I mean, you still know the system's profitable, over the numbers, and you can even play around with over the last few months. Is it still profitable and things like that? And that's what I've done on the forums as well. I mean, you put down your calculations. You want to have in these cases, you want to have a honest conversation. It's not just about I lost money this week, but you want to say, is there statistical change and things like that? And I think what helped a lot, Miguel, on the one time with table tennis having its drawdown, the 1 month it wasn't great. I think when you even you also experienced your losses, is when you actually went in, and you said, the CLV is still fine, nothing has changed. You made a comment about there are a few new players in the markets, which can be a bit of a curveball, but you said there that, if there's anything to change, you'll change it if need be. You don't want to change something that's working, but and I think, those type of discussions help a lot, where you actually, say, that you are keeping an eye on these things. And I think the main thing is that when people, when there's complaints or concerns on the forums, it's not like you turn a blind eye. You are tracking it all the time. I mean, it's not to say that you go on holiday for a month and then, just cross your fingers. So I think that's a big thing, is in terms of that you are actively tracking it. You're checking the CLV, you look at it, and I think you're doing always your own tests, which is always comforting to know, because I think sometimes bettors that when they start becoming unprofitable, they decide to not do those calculations. They'll tell you, here's my history over the last 5 years, but they won't tell you what the history is over the last year. And I think that's key in this type of conversations, especially with such a drawdown.
Well, in table tennis, it's very hard to check what is happening because there are many matches, many players. It's different from tennis because there are many small clusters playing. They are not playing or mixing all between them. So we have countries, different countries playing only in that country or even in that city. So it is hard to know if there is a very important but small change in some tournaments. So we get focused on tournaments more than the whole table tennis system, because it happens. For example, in the Czech Liga Pro, they have some rules. They play some kind of league, and then they play third position, and who wins that league. So it's different from other tournaments. And when they change something, it's very hard to us to detect. And even if we are also betting, because we have skin in the game, we are also placing bets with the system constantly. But it's sometimes very hard to know what is happening when they have some changes, especially when there are new players or they change the number of matches or even during the weeks, they have different, or they mix the groups at the beginning of the week, and then the ratings need 1-2 days to adapt. So it's something that is very difficult to know unless you are very, very focused. And with this kind of system we have that is based on very large numbers, sometimes it takes some time to adapt. But we are always trying to improve. But when I find an improvement, I'm very, very cautious, because perhaps it's an improvement or perhaps not. Sometimes we have tested many things that we have not finally introduced in the method because we are not sure. And when something is working, we prefer not changing anything unless we are very, very sure that it's an improvement. Okay, and also when placing bets with table tennis, how or at least in Spain, you have to be very fast because the odds vanish almost instantly. But are you using also local books for the table tennis, or is something that, So and
we have to actually use local books because it's illegal to use other books. So we're forced to use local books in this case.
And which is your procedure? Do you activate all the other bookies so that you get notifications from other bookies, and then
that's how I do it. Again, if it's a Bet365 profitability, if it's EV bets on 3 bookies or 5 bookies, there's a good chance it'll be EV on my side as well, or with the local books, because the local books are, because they're local, they've got a little bit more margin, that they allow for. So I mean, there should always be a good margin in place.
What about the maximum bet? Which is the maximum amount you can place in table tennis?
Never tried the maximum bet because I think that's your bull in the China store. That's rule number 10. I don't know which rule that one is, but I think one of the things when we talk on the forums is to keep it, at a low enough amount. If it's 50 euros, 25 euros, depending on that. I mean, you don't want to ever go too aggressive. I know some people say go aggressive with the books, but they flag you very quickly. That's what they don't like it. They may have more profitability, or not profitability, better margins, and a bit more. They might have a bit of a tolerance for you, but if you go heavy, then they stop you very quickly, which they've done on a few books with me.
So is that perhaps around 50% of the maximum bet, or less than 50%? So, I mean, do you know which is the maximum bet you can place, and then you decide to go about 50 euros or very small amount?
I've learned, like, let's say, using a particular. I mean, when we talk about between, like, let's say, it's 50 euros to 100 euros as a good average. I mean, you learn to just stick with that. You don't go and test the books, because there are some books do have a lot of money in the country. Others have got very little. The moment that they see a profitable better at all, after like 2 or 3 bets, they shut down their accounts, and then you end up walking away with 30 euros, So I don't know what the maximums are. There are some deep pockets, but I mean, I've never tested those waters. I don't want to be put onto their radar.
Okay. Well,
and we don't have access to it. I know, like, let's say with Pinnacle, you can see what the maximum bet is. You see what the liquidity is and things like that. We don't have the books here. Don't really disclose those things. In terms of, like, liquidity.
They don't show it.
No, they don't.
Oh, okay. So, well, I don't know if you're aware, but here in Spain, at least Bet365 has lowered.
I believe so. I saw on the forum they've lowered the max.
Yeah. To 1/5. I mean, it is a very important change, and the volume has decreased a lot. But I think, or I have some news that they are testing things so that perhaps in the future they will raise the limits again. But I don't know, because they are trying to introduce another way to detect people that bets EV positive. So they are testing. Probably for some months we will have these lower limits, and other bookies, at least in table tennis, they have very low limits. So you can place 10 euros, 25 euros. It's something normal, but then you have to be very close to the maximum bet because otherwise it's not worth to spend time on them. Yeah.
Now, what happens is if you're careful enough with some of the books in the country here, they will only limit you on the sports, but you got full limit. You're not limited on other sports. So I mean, that's when you can try to be clever about how you go about it. Other times, if you go too hard, they limit your full accounts. So again, it also depends on the books, that we've got access to.
Okay, so and you mentioned that before using WinnerOdds, you used some tools, Excel tools or calculators we provided. So I understand that you want to know as much as you can about what you are doing, the bets you are following. So in terms of education or knowledge, what things have you learned with WinnerOdds? Which is the main thing that you have noticed that was new for you, or that was important that you didn't know before, if there is anything?
Now, I think the main thing that WinnerOdds taught about was about EV bets. I think that was the biggest thing about WinnerOdds, was about knowing about, let's say, EV bets, and that every bet must be EV positive over the long run to make your money. And I think that was because, I mean, before joining WinnerOdds, I would follow profitable tipsters, but the tipsters would only tell you what their ROI is, and we know that doesn't mean anything. I mean, a lot of tipster websites would just show the ROI; they would never show the closing line, and I think that was always the biggest flaw across most of these tipsters out there and betting sites, that they wouldn't show the CLV, in terms of what your actual true EV is. But I think using the Excel tools helped a lot, because you can at least then, if you've got the raw data, you can work out your own EV. And I think that was what I learned from WinnerOdds in terms of doing those calculations. So that's how probably that was probably the biggest thing that I picked up from joining WinnerOdds, was that. And then there was the smaller things that we spoke about, like the tracking tool. I mean, it's one thing to track your own bets, but you can sometimes make mistakes, capture the wrong data, capture the wrong odds. And WinnerOdds made it highly beneficial to just do the automatic calculations for you. So you can always just check on a daily basis how things going. Although you shouldn't be checking every day, but I mean, again, that was a small thing that WinnerOdds took, was the tracking of your tool was a big deal. So I think that was something that you don't advertise. You don't advertise your betting, your tracking tool, but I think it's a huge deal to have a tracking tool like it to support you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because it's something that is difficult for us to explain how important that is, because when you have few bets or when you are used to place 20, 30 bets per week, is a very small amount, and people doesn't understand how important it is to be very fast on tracking your bets and have all your statistics. You can filter it by days, with the calendar, also by the tournaments, and for us it's very important also to show the profitability for different odds, because when people think that betting at very high goals is better because you can get higher yield, but you also have more risk. And we have shown always that betting at low odds is very profitable if you have an advantage, because the risk is much lower. So it's something that helps people to understand that they have to bet at all the odds range, because some of them, they think, no, betting below 1.5 is cannot be profitable because the odds are very low. Yes, but if you win 80% of the time, then it's profitable. And it's something that I thought that is important too.
I was going to say, but I know that when you show the different odds ranges and the profitability, some people have got negatives. So then they'll use that chart and they say that I won't bet under 1.5 because it's unprofitable for me. So it works and it doesn't work, but it definitely shows that if you got EV across any odds range, you can make a profit.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and also many times I see, with odds higher than 4, my yield is around 40%. Yes, but the risk I'm assuming is very high, so that the profit I need to get is higher, of course. And I also think, why cannot we bet more on those ranges? That's also because bookies don't allow us to bet higher when the odds are very high, because they are assuming also a high risk of losing. So it's something that we thought from the beginning that was also important to show the user the results for different odds ranges, so that they are confident on betting in all the ranges. Of course, someone can have bad results just for variance in a specific range, but it's something that is normal, because when you divide all your bets in different ranges, the number of bets on each range is lower, and you can be influenced by variance. But what I always think is, okay, you have positive results from 1 to 1.5, then between 1.5 and 1.10 you have negative results, and you have positive results above 1.8. So there is no reason for having such bad results in a specific range other than variance. But some people think, no, I don't like these bets because when I place them I always lose, or whatever. So it's something that is also difficult to understand, but you try to be to have logical reasoning. Well, there is no reason for a specific range to be negative. It's just variance because you divide the number of bets. Okay, and
I also wanted to add that's also another thing that you don't advertise as a feature is also your customized Kelly criterion, that you use your own staking plan to ensure that the risk of ruin is minimized as best possible. And I think, again, that becomes because some tipsters will tell you use so many points if you've got a 100-point bank, but in your case, you look at the bankroll and you indicate, well, based on Kelly criterion, your own customized, if it's higher odds, lower bet. If it's low odds, of course, a higher bet. And I think, again, that you don't actively advertise that to say that we ensure that the staking tries to really minimize, losing your bankroll, for argument's sake. And I think, again, to do that calculation manually each time when you're doing your own bets takes time. I mean, there's lots of formulas out there to help you, but the fact that it's automated again on the WinnerOdds platform makes it, again, very easy just to identify it, know what the amount is, and then go place a bet. So again, it's one of those things that you only appreciate afterwards.
Well, at the beginning, 10 years ago, we used more or less a constant profit formula, so that you get around 1 unit per bet on average. And then with real data, I calibrated everything so that because when the odds from our system and the odds from the bookmakers were very different, I had my doubts about my system more than the bookmaker. So I thought, well, if the odds are very different, be cautious, because probably there is something that we don't know, and our minimum profitable odds can be wrong. But after having real data, I really convinced me that, well, when we have a big difference, many times is the bookie wrong, but sometimes we are also wrong. So that's why I use this customized Kelly criteria formula, so that when the odds increase much above the minimum profitable odds, you bet more and more, but until one limit. So if the odds are very, very different, probably there is something wrong. And then we cap the maximum profit per bet, because we found that it was better or in order to reduce the risk. And okay, so with your experience, what would be the advice you could give to a new user? Which is the 2 or 3 more important things that you found that a new user has to follow when starting with WinnerOdds?
I think the first thing is, of course, before you start with WinnerOdds, do your homework. So read all the websites there to educate the users and new users. So use the websites. There's knowledge bases, there's top 10 rules, there's ebooks, and I think just get a good feel for it, because it's a very different system from others. I mean, unless you do like a steaming service or an odds drop-in service where there's hundreds and hundreds of odds, a normal tipster, you won't be prepared for WinnerOdds. And I think that's the first thing, is just to do your homework beforehand. I think already that, if you're on the WinnerOdds site, there's a reason why you're there. Either somebody recommended to you, or you saw it on Twitter or Smart Betting Club or wherever. So there's a good reason why you're there, Then I think, of course, it's just to then, when you do it, to be properly invested in it. I mean, the thing is that you say that you've got a 3,000 bankroll. 3,000 euro bankroll, then own that bankroll and be prepared to, lose it if need be, if it's a drawdown, but really get invested in the system. Every notification, tackle it, you have to really give it your time, and then WinnerOdds will pay the dividends. I think another thing that I also want to suggest is when you start with WinnerOdds is get support from your family, because people have sometimes commented on that, the wives or will get upset when there's a notification on Telegram, all these notifications going off, and I think the thing in things like this is that you need family support. But understand when you're looking down and seeing a Telegram notification, you have to do something on it. I think you need the family support because they have to understand what you're doing, and that would be probably my biggest things in terms of just at least for new users. And of course, when in doubt, go to the forums. The Discord forums are there to support you, to guide you, to advise you. And I mean, there's a lot of users that have been there for years that know they've been through the same experience as you. So use the forums.
Okay, so thank you for these 3-4 advices you have given, because that one about the family and the people that is around you, to understand that when you receive a notification, perhaps you are going to spend 1 or 2 minutes placing the bets. I think it's important because it's something that happens all the time. When you have, you are, I don't know, watching a movie, or you are just on a trip or something. Well, it takes 1 minute. For you, it's important because you are trying to follow the method, and perhaps other people doesn't understand what is happening. And I think that is important to share with them what you are doing, and perhaps you can reach some kind of I don't know, agreement, or just to let them know that you are trying to improve your economical situation by placing those bets and spending these few minutes placing bets, because otherwise it's impossible. And sometimes I have known people that has told me this regarding their kids, because their kids don't understand what their fathers are doing when taking the mobile phone or going to the computer, and for some of them it's difficult to combine this activity, placing bets, with having kids around that are harder to explain what is happening and why are you focusing on this in some situations. And I have also found a lot of people that takes vacations from WinnerOdds. I mean, when in December I stopped using WinnerOdds, or in summer. So I think that also having these rest weeks or even months is also important for your mind, for the people is around you, because sometimes it can be very demanding.
Especially on the table tennis. I mean, if you've done tennis and you've done football and you see the volumes of table tennis, it becomes a different beast, And I think again, you just have to really make sure that the family knows what you're doing especially on table tennis.
Yes, because table tennis is around 7-8 times more bets than tennis or football. The bet size is lower probably, but the number of opportunities you have is much higher. So that it is also important to know about that when you are trying to follow table tennis. And also, well, if you join table tennis, you probably know, but if you join tennis or football for the first time, you have to also be aware that you don't need to follow 100% of the bets. On average, our users place 30-40% of the total number of recommendations we give, and that is enough to cover the subscription price and get your profit. Because many people, or a lot of people that joins WinnerOdds, tries to follow all the recommendations and they get burned because it's too much time, too much effort. But well, it's something that they have to administrate and adapt slowly to this huge amount of bets, especially if you live in Europe or because the number of bets that depends on when the bookies share their odds, but most of them share them in when in Europe is during the day in Europe. I mean, between 7 o'clock in the morning and around 10 in the night. So that is the number of bets at this range of hours is higher. So something that you also have to be aware of. Okay, so I think that we have been talking about many interesting things. I don't know if there is a question about that. Yes, we have some question about the liquidity of WinnerOdds. Are there many ITF picks? Well, it depends on the tournaments. Around 70-80% of the tournaments are ITF. It's just a question of number of matches. The ITF tournaments are played around the world in many places, so that 70-80% of the tournaments are ITF, and the number of tournaments with higher level, Challenger, WTA, ATP, are lower. There are 2 or 3 per week, while we have 10, 12 ITF tournaments per week. So that is the average number of bets of each type of tournament. Some people ask us about, well, if I only want to place bets on ATP or ATP and WTA, is it worth to follow WinnerOdds? I always say to them that probably is not, because you are restricting yourself to a very small amount of bets. But it depends. If you have a huge bankroll and you can place big bets without being restricted, then probably it can be also profitable, although the ROI we obtain in those tournaments is, of course, lower because it's much harder to get value from them.
But I mean, also on that one, Miguel, is that you guys do disclose the different ROIs on the different tournaments. So you have shown that across 2024, 2025, you can show the differences in the return on investments across all the different tournaments. So you've shown that before as well. So again, the team, if you want to go see, you can see it on the forums, and there's spreadsheets showing what's the ROI on those different tournaments.
Yes, and also in these tournaments you have lower number of bets, and then variance is also higher, especially in Challenger. There are not many tournaments, and then you can have a long streak in terms of time, but it's also because there are less bets on this specific tournament. It's something that is also important to know. Okay, and what about the ebook? Did you read it, or did you find it useful? Or did you know this, or it was not new for you, all the concept we talked about in this ebook?
No, I think the ebook just reinforced some principles. So I mean, the ebook was good. I think that what's on the site is already a lot of good work. I mean, also your blogs. I mean, you've got very educationally solid blogs in that sense. That's where you learned a lot. So I think the ebook just reinforced that. I mean, in terms of what access was, but I think a lot of the information is embedded in the site, where we go and find, if it's information about what is MPO, what is it, where you define MPO on the site and things like that. But the ebook was just another way of reinforcing your principles about EV betting.
Okay. So, well, I don't know if you want to comment anything else, something you would like to share with users that are new in WinnerOdds.
I think the only thing after the last few weeks or months of my own, let's say, because I mean, to Miguel's point is that I do work with numbers and stats and analytics and run my own models. And what you are doing, it's not easy to be profitable in sports betting. I think that's a very obvious comment. But even when you build models with exceptional data, tens of thousands of rows of data, it's still so difficult to beat the closing line. And I think that's when you start really appreciating the work that you have done with WinnerOdds, is that it's still, no matter what the data you use, the models you use, the libraries that you've got access to, I still think that you realize how difficult it is to actually statistically beat the closing line value, or the closing line in that sense. And I think that's maybe just a comment to say that, it's one thing to say that you got a profitable system, anybody can say it, but when you realize the volume that's involved on your volume that you've got, and as well as the doing your own models, you realize how difficult it actually is. And I know that we the forums keep on saying when's basketball coming out, and when's what's it esports or hockey or whatever. And I think the whole thing about it is that it's difficult to be profitable in any sport. So I think it's just, you start appreciating the work that's gone into it. So especially for tennis to still be profitable all these years later. So
okay, so thank you very much, because it's something that is very, very hard to understand, that the method we are using in real, it doesn't know anything about the sport. So you have to give to the algorithms all the previous knowledge you can, but in terms of the algorithm itself, it doesn't know anything about the sport, about the players, about anything. So you have to include all this information from different sources and manage a huge volume of data. And then, of course, it's very important to know how to perform the backtest so that it is representative from the reality, and compare this backtest also with the real test that is placing bets, and see which are the differences. Because sometimes you will say in your backtest, okay, I bet 5 units, but in reality you cannot bet 5 units because the odds lower very fast, or you have other rules. Like, for example, for us it's very bad when a match is there is a retirement in a match, in a tennis match, because normally is the favorite player that retires, and we bet most of the time for the favorite players because our average odds are below 2. And if you lose that matches, it's very it can influence your ROI in the long term. And it's something that we had to include, because in some bookmakers they give you back your money, but in other bookmakers they not. They take it as a loss. So it's something that has to be taken into account. And all these specific rules from different sports, or in this case tennis, have to be also included in the backtest, because it can affect your algorithm and your results. So, okay, thank you very much. And if you try to do your own models and you have questions about how to perform the backtest or how WinnerOdds does it, it would be very interesting for me also to help or collaborate, because what I have learned is that there are very different ways to approach the same problem.
I've also learned that, yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much. I hope we can talk again in the future, perhaps when we share basketball to our users. And perhaps we can talk about the results, because it will be a very, very different sport, because you have many lines, many over-unders.
Yeah.
And also the liquidity is very different. You can place bets to different lines at the same time, and is very different from tennis and football. And I hope this year will be the definitive year when we show it. And probably after this summer, I hope that we will have it. And well, thank you very much. And I think that it has been very interesting for me, and it's a pleasure to have known you, because we have talked also sometimes in the Discord server.
Yeah.
And as you have said, it's also an important way of sharing your thoughts with other people that is following WinnerOdds. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Miguel. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I'm stopping the recording. We are now live. Already recording.
Great stuff.
So we will start now. Okay. So hello, Adam.